I've just done a bit of a catch-up video, just see how far I've got. I'm finally getting the bike into sort of a more of a pre-production sort of thing stage now. We're getting it obviously now, so the main bits are on. Most things are lining up really well. Um, we've footed off. See, I fitted the front forks, as you can see. Obviously, nothing's glued. Everything's just virtually just balanced at the moment. But it obviously gives you an idea of obviously the sort of size what it's going to be and um, basic things I need to do. So there's a lot of cleanup more needed, the cleaning up that we do. But I like to pre-mock the bikes. Most bikes really. You have to pre-mock like things like Model Factory Hero and resin kits because the parts don't fit very well. Although the great kits, generally white metal and resin tend to leave a lot to the modeler to obviously get things to fit. That's just the way the kits are. Plastic kits tend to be ones where you can pre-assemble them onto the straight away out of the kit. They tend to fit together really well. But I still like to pre-mock them. It gives you an idea of how the bike goes together and actually identifying the parts, which is a lot of it. When you build from instruction, if you build from instruction sheets and you follow them step by step, which I never do anyway, you can sometimes get into a routine where you're painting and cleaning, you push a lot more. All this bike needs to be primered for one. But when they become primer, you can sometimes lose what they are. So I tend to like to identify the parts to find out obviously what colour they're going to be. So you can break them down into what particular shade of black they're going to be, whether they're going to be gloss or whether they're going to be satin or whether they're going to be matte black, the chrome parts and bits and pieces like that. But it's also how they fit together. So I can get in my mind the way parts are going to actually have to be assembled. The way the instructions sometimes assemble them, like we went before, the idea of this kit is the frame should be in two halves and you should actually fit the frame around the engine. Well, we've changed that, as you've seen from other videos. We've mounted the engine differently. So when I come to paint the engine, I can virtually assemble all the frame and get it all pre-painted, ready to go, and then start assembling the bike around the frame, which is generally probably how bikes are actually manufactured. They start off with the frame and then attach sub-assemblies to it, which is the way I like to build really. But it also gives you an idea, going back to the thing, is how parts fit together. And looking at this, I know when they're painted, they're going to fit together. So I can now take this apart. All the parts need to go through cleanup and obviously primary. But generally, I know how the bike's going to necessarily assemble. You're going to see a lot of detailed bits that's missing, like footrests and foot pegs and bits and pieces. I don't go that far. There's not really for when I've done in the past, unless it's like something like a Model Factory Hero. So for the last, like the rough and stuff, that's white metal. Generally, they're going to fit pretty well, and there's not really a lot of needed any adjustment to it. The Model Factory Hero stuff and white metal stuff, sometimes they're bent out of shape or things are twisted, and you do need to fit those. And I've been caught out of that on other models where I haven't, and then when I've come to actually fit them, they don't fit. And then you have a problem is you've got a bike that's virtually obviously in the process of being finished, so everything's painted, everything's glossed, and there's small detail bits on, and then you find another small detail that doesn't fit, and then you've got to try and handle the bike in a way where you don't break off the bits that you've already fitted. And this is why sometimes you sometimes need to fit other bits. Plastics are not always that much of a problem. They're pretty, unless you want to modify parts to make them fit or to make them look better or whatever, this is the time to do it. But on general parts, you can generally, like footrests and bits and pieces, you're generally pretty good with those. Again, depending on the kit. I've built Airfix kits in the past, and some of the really old Airfix in the past have been pretty bad. But all in all, Japanese manufactured kits are generally pretty good, and obviously Chinese now, obviously like the Dragon kits and bits and pieces, etc. Although I don't do a lot of military, they do fit extremely well. But I just want to show you really how far I've got. It's just basically trying to do a step-by-step process really, and showing you how I build. You'll probably see there's no carbs on it. I've looked at the bits for the carb and they're relatively straightforward. I might sub-assemble them, I might put them together, and and see how it goes. But all in all, the bike's coming along really, really well. As I say, I keep saying it. I'm impressed with the age of the kit. You know, not knocking. You know, back in the day, people say stuff are not as good as they are today. It stands up pretty well, as you can see. That the kit itself is not a bad kit for say it's 40-year-old. You know, the mouldings are pretty crisp. You know, I've seen worse kits, you know, in the past 10, 15 years that people's brought out. That the parts are pretty bad. You know, I don't know what will happen to the mould for these. You don't see many of them around. You know, you see them quite of high sort of value on eBay. This kit wasn't. It was quite an expensive kit of what you would pay for an all-leather kit today. For a similar size. You know, when I was working in a mold shop, this probably kit would have gone for probably 20 quid, something like that maybe. And I don't know what it was for the day because this kit was out and it went out of production before I even started. So I don't know what in the price. Maybe you guys can maybe put some light onto the kits, onto the price of the kit. But for what it is, I'm quite impressed. So I thought I'd just give you a bit of a heads up on obviously how far I've got. As I say, I might put the carbs on this and see if they fit. I don't think there'll be an issue with the carbs. And I've done all the rear mudguard. That all fits really. This is just really just as a final sort of quick mock-up that everything sort of fits in line. Headlight, I've got that to do. I might fit that up. I've got to detail the front mudguard. It needs the rivets putting on. And then obviously there'll be the wiring. So the wiring, the parts need to be fitted generally. Sometimes, or in process, or in situation where you can actually plumb the wiring. The wiring is probably my favourite, really. Putting the detail on and bits and pieces like that. Sometimes I get a little bit ahead of myself where I'll try and put wiring on where I should have done that probably sooner, but we'll see how it goes. There's not a massive amount of wiring because I say it's relatively an older bike, but there is obviously like your brake cables, clutch cables, throttle cables, tail lights, indicators, wiring. I might see if I can put that on. And then you sort of put into just like a little loom. Now, whether that's going to be an original loom, I've got no pictures of the loom, so I normally even resort to like Haynes manuals, but there's no Haynes manuals for this, so it's just going to be a matter of the pictures I've got and see what I can find on the internet. But you know, things are tucked away under tanks and bits and pieces, so it's quite a tricky thing to do, really. But apart from that, it's coming on really, really well. So I just thought I'd give you guys a bit of a heads up on how far we've got. So I'll catch you in the next one.